Perfect. Thank you, Leila. All right, so if everybody can hear me properly, thank you again for joining us this evening. And like we were just saying, it's such a beautiful day and you're here, so we really appreciate this. Today we have a different type of webinar because we're having, it's basically going to be half a talk and then the majority of it will be a yoga class. So I have the pleasure of welcoming Leila Stewart tonight. And Leila is an international, hi there.
I'll go in there if you want to come in here.
Hi, everybody. Can we please make sure that we're all on mute? I can hear a few people still that are not. Sorry about that. Anyway, so back to presentation time. Leila is an international teacher. She's also an author, and she actually runs Counterpoint Yoga Therapy Studio in White Rock, and she's run that for over 20 years. So we are definitely in some good hands this evening. And I would love to hand over the stage to Leila in one more second here. Just a quick reminder to please, again, make sure you're on mute. You'll receive a video recording of this tomorrow, and you'll also receive a Nutrition Buck $10 coupon for Choices Markets as soon as you get my email tomorrow asking you for your mailing address, as many of you have become accustomed to receiving and responding very promptly. So I thank you for that. Please put your questions in the chat function for Leila, and she will get to you at the end of her presentation. She may also want to take live questions at the end. That's completely up to her. And so now I welcome Leila. And I'm going to unpin my video and pin yours.
You're pinning my video, okay.
Yep.
So people then don't have to put themselves on
Nope.
speaker view. Okay.
Yeah, I think everybody can see you.
Hi, Sylvia. Sylvia, all the way from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Wow.
All right. Well, I recognize a few names, so welcome everyone. So I'm getting quite used to doing this online class, although it was a very steep learning curve. And so now I've got my microphone, my lights, my camera, and my internet is all secured. So the topic tonight is yoga therapy for chronic pain. And I am extremely qualified to give this talk, not just because of all of my training, and I'm a massage therapist and I've been teaching yoga for 30 years and written a book and all kinds of things, but I'm mostly qualified to give this talk because I am a person who has lived with chronic pain most of my life. And starting at age 19 when I really wrecked my back, and it was actually that got me into yoga. Somebody told me that there's this thing called yoga that is supposed to be good for your back. And so I bought my first book, and that was that. I could relieve my pain every day. And it wasn't until almost 20 years later when I started to really study it and take teacher training that I really learned how I could change my body with yoga and not just relieve pain. So I have a couple of stories to tell you. The first, and these stories illustrate what's going on in the neuroscience world of pain research these days. So this is the first story. There was a carpenter in the UK somewhere, and he showed up in the emergency room screaming in pain, and he had a very, very long nail go right through his work boot. And he was just in agony, and they tried everything. They tried morphine, they tried all the painkillers they had. And when they finally got him in the operating room and cut his boot off, they saw that the nail had not penetrated his foot at all. It had gone through 2 toes. So why do I tell you this story? I will tell you in a moment after I tell you the second story. And you've probably heard stories like this before, where in certain circumstances, people can be extremely injured and they do not feel pain. So I'll give the example of the football player who gets trampled on because he's got the ball, and then the other team or somebody on his team gets the ball away, and then he's free and the ball comes to him, and then he runs down, he passes the goal, and then it turns out that he's got a cruciate ligament tear and he's in excruciating pain. But he was in no pain whatsoever while he was running. So why do I tell you these stories? Because pain neuroscience over the past 20, 30 years has discovered that pain really does not have very much to do with the extent of tissue damage. And I know that's sort of counterintuitive, because we think, well, if I cut myself with a knife, it hurts and there's some tissue damage. And yes, that's true in the acute phase, but it also has to do more, and this is what the research has shown, with how your brain processes what's going on. And so the actual tissue damage and the mechanism of damage is just one aspect. And what happens is that it's one aspect among many that the brain takes into consideration before it produces the sensation of pain. And what happens is that we have these sensory receptors all in our body, all over our body, but there's actually no pain receptors. So there's nothing that can be considered an actual pain receptor. But what the receptors pick up is sensation. So heat, pressure, angle, pull, that kind of thing. And then it sends those signals to the brain, and the brain takes those signals and it adds it to a whole bunch of different other aspects of the brain, including your expectations, your memories, your emotional state, your belief system, your culture. All of these things are taken into context before pain is actually produced. And so what the neuroscience has shown is that pain is a product of the nervous system, of the brain, if it considers that you are in danger. So if there's more danger signals than there are safety signals that get into the brain, then the brain will output pain. So this has been very, very interesting. There's been hundreds and probably thousands of research studies on how pain can be produced without any tissue damage, and people can experience no pain with extensive tissue damage. You've probably all heard instances of the mother lifting the car off of the baby when she's got, you know, broken bones and lacerations and everything. She doesn't feel that, because what's more important for her brain in that moment is to save her baby. Yeah. So when the brain determines that you are in need, that it's not safe, and that you are in need of protection, then it will produce pain. Because when pain is produced, then it will make you move away from the source of pain or do something to keep yourself safe. So there's been all kinds of interesting studies done. Like there was one done where people were hooked up to a machine that was to give them a zap, an electrical zap. And in the study, one group one group saw a red button, and the other group saw a blue button. And they could see the person pressing the button to give them the zap. And so with all of the study participants, when all of the data was mapped onto graphs, what it showed is that people who saw the red button had more pain than people who saw the blue button. But the catch of this study is that there was no zap. The machine was unplugged. So there was no electrical energy going through people at all. But because they thought that something was going through, then, so there's study after study after study showing this. It's totally fascinating work. But what the good news is that because pain is a phenomenon that is produced in the brain, it means that we can use the brain and use the mind to decrease our pain. So this pain neuroscience has latched on to what's called the biopsychosocial model of pain. And now we're dealing with chronic pain. So the biopsychosocial model says that the physical is important, the social context is important, your emotions are important, your mind is important in treating pain. So I'm going to talk about the yogic perspective in a while and go back and forth. But what's interesting is that with chronic pain, there are definite changes in the brain. You've probably all heard of neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the capacity of the brain to change its form, to change its function according to what's happened in the environment. And so with pain, what's interesting about modern neuroscience is that we have all the science now that can explain things. And we have the thousands of years old yogic tradition that was saying basically the same things, only without the science. So what the science has shown in chronic pain is that there's neuroplastic changes that make it so that a light stimulus can cause pain. So before it might have taken, say, a stimulus of 10 to cause pain, but with chronic pain, that's all gone awry. And so maybe it will take a light touch or an intensity of 2 to cause pain. So pain will happen quicker, and it will also be stronger pain. And also what happens is that the areas of the brain that have to do with particular parts of your body get sort of smudged. And so you might have started out with pain in your shoulder, but over time, because of that neuroplastic change, then you'll start feeling it in your upper back, in your side, in your neck. And so the area of the pain changes. So one of the gurus of pain science is an Australian PhD physiotherapist named Lorimer Moseley. And what he tells his patients, and I've spent a day with him in a seminar, and I learned a lot of this stuff from him. He tells his patients, neuroplasticity got you into this mess, and neuroplasticity can get you out of this mess. So it's a great thing to know that his whole shtick is called explain pain. So what he's discovered, and what many other people have discovered, is that when people really understand how pain is produced in the brain and how it's magnified in the brain, so it's like the brain can turn the volume dial of pain up, or it can turn it down. And we know now the kinds of things that turn it down. So anything else about neuroscience I want to say? Okay, we'll leave that for now. Well, I'll say one more thing. So Lorimer Moseley and his crew have come up with a really great and funny way of teaching about this. And they talk about DIMS and SIMS. So DIMS are danger in me signals, and SIMS are safety in me signals. So what the research has found is that if we can do things that help you to feel safe, then your pain will decrease. And I'll talk more about this later. So then there's yoga, and I'll just say very briefly that yoga therapy is different than the yoga that you might go to at the studio down the street. And the differences are that yoga therapy, I did the whole last seminar on what is yoga therapy, so I'll say this in just a few sentences. So yoga therapy draws on all of the tools of yoga. So probably more of the tools of yoga than a regular yoga class does. And the focus in using these tools is to decrease suffering. So we know that for some people, maybe the chronic pain will never actually go away. But if we can change the relationship of that person to the pain, and if we can help that person get to a place of understanding that this movement is safe, that this breath can calm their pain down, that pain is not a solid thing, that sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less. And if that's the case, then what are the kinds of things that I can do to bring that pain level down? So yoga therapy is really about empowering people with tools to participate in their own healing process. And on the part of the therapist, that takes a lot more education, a lot more knowledge than most yoga teachers have. And some of you may have gone to a regular yoga class, because now even doctors are saying, do yoga. And then you go to a yoga class and you hurt yourself. And that's because most regular yoga teachers don't understand all of this stuff that I'm talking about. So we have much more education. And the other thing is that we work with the person. So in a regular class, and I do regular classes, but I know about everyone in the class, and I can modify according to what I know about people. In a yoga therapy class or in a private session, we just try things and see, does this make the pain better? Is this neutral, or does it make the pain worse? And if it's better, yay, then we'll keep that. If it makes it worse, is there some way that we can modify what we're doing to make that movement a helpful movement? And always, 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 we're very big on safety. And safety means working to your own capacity. So understanding what your capacity is. And it also means having compassion for yourself. And this is probably one of the most important points in creating a sense of safety for yourself. Because many people in chronic pain dissociate from the part that hurts, or they make it, oh, they even call it, oh, my bad shoulder. And calling it your bad shoulder over and over again tells your brain that that's a bad shoulder, and it's going to take that into consideration when it creates pain. So what does the yoga tradition, which is thousands of years old, say about this? It says that yoga actually means union. And so number one, it means that we take into consideration all of you in working with your suffering, and that your suffering may decrease. We are hoping that it decreases, and we hope that we can decrease possible future suffering. But if we can't decrease the pain level a whole lot, then can we work with your mind to help you to be with that pain, to be with your life as it is with pain, in a way that decreases your suffering? Because pain and suffering are different. Yeah, pain is what you're experiencing when your finger is hurting, or you have the shoulder dislocation or whatever. But suffering is how you are with that. So suffering is the thoughts that go with that. Oh, I'll always, this will always be, I'll never be able to do this again. I'll never be able to get a job doing that. The endless loops of thoughts that go around and around and around. And now the research tells us that when you have those endless loops of thought, then that's going to contribute to your pain. So yoga, the yoga tradition didn't have the functional MRIs to see that, but in the wisdom of that tradition, they knew that when you keep looping in your mind, when you keep desiring things that you can't have, when you reject things, when you tell your story, your pain story over and over again and become very attached to it, I can't do that because I'm in pain or whatever, then that is what causes you suffering. And that when you can start to work with that with your mind, then your suffering can decrease, and you can actually touch into the unity of mind, body, soul that is you. That's what yoga says, that you are already whole. And yes, we have these coverings of things that are going on, but at your essence, you are already whole. You are already at peace. You are already in joy. And that when we can touch into that and detach from some of the other attachments, then that will decrease your pain level. So let's see what the yoga tradition has to say. So the yoga tradition sees you as a multidimensional being. So we've got a physical body. So in that physical body, we can move, we have alignment, and so when we're working with the physical body, we're working with movement, we're working with alignment, and we're working to find, for you and for you and for you, what are the movements that you can do that bring a feeling of safety to your body, a feeling of safety in your being, and that you can do them and they build a sense of mastery. Like, hey, I can do that. I might not be able to do high jump, but I can bend over now to tie my shoes. And isn't that wonderful? Yeah. So in yoga, we work with movements, with repatterning some of the dysfunctional patterns that you may have picked up over the years. And because of my background as a movement therapist, we do a lot of sort of preliminary movements, a lot of inquiry into particular parts of the body so that you can get to know that part of your body. So the second aspect of you that yoga sees is your energy body. And this is breath, and this is prana. So prana is your life force energy. And when we have it, we're alive. And when we don't have it, we are not alive anymore. So prana is that which animates us. And so pain and suffering is prana that is stuck somewhere. So we can do things, we can use movement, we can use breath to move that prana. And that it's like opening a dam. And when that happens, then you feel energy moving through your body, and then you feel some emotional energy moving, and you feel your mental energy moving, all because it's all tied together. And any change that you make on one level is going to have an effect on all other levels. So what happens in pain is that people tend to not breathe. And you may have noticed this in yourself, that pain makes you sort of stiffen up against the pain. And when we can learn to soften, to breathe more fully, then that can actually have a huge impact on pain. In fact, there's many, many practices, simple breathing practices that can decrease pain. So in that realm of the breathing body, we work directly with the breath, but we also work with movements that open up the capacity for breath. And what's interesting about breath and shallow breathing, which is often what happens in pain, shallow upper chest breathing, is that actually changes the chemistry of the blood, which then affects the brain and makes it even more hypervigilant and more liable to cause pain. So we want to work with the breath. And what we know, what the yoga tradition tells us, is that certain kinds of breath can calm the nervous system. And when we calm the nervous system, then there's more of a feeling of safety. And when your body and your mind feel safe, then the pain levels decrease. Okay. Then the next layer aspect of you is the emotional layer. In yoga, it's called manomaya kosha, the mind. And so this is really your lower mind. So this is the part of you that registers sensations, that thinks, that puts the thoughts out, and that puts the emotions out. So what the research has shown, and what the yoga tradition already knew, is that negative emotions will increase pain. there's a direct correlation between pain and depression. And so what we know is that when we can do practices that help to change our mood and to deal with difficult emotions and to build emotional resilience, then pain levels can decrease. That's pretty amazing. And so a lot of people in pain have been told by specialists or doctors or by family, oh, it's all in your head, right? Your pain is all in your head, which doesn't make you feel very safe or very seen or acknowledged. And although that's actually true, the way that they were saying it is very, very different than the actuality of it, which is that pain is an output of the brain when it takes all of the inputs from everywhere, your context, your background, and decides that you need protecting, and so pain is produced. Okay, so that's manomaya kosha, the emotional aspect. And the next part of us, our higher mind, in yoga it's called vijnanamaya kosha. This is where the gold is, because this is where we can become aware of our habits of movement, of standing. Some people always sit more heavily on one side or stand with the foot to one side, or you might notice how you're sitting right now. And so with our higher mind, we can make a decision to become aware of our habits. They could be habits of breathing. They could be habits of emotional response. They could be habits of how we see the world, how we perceive. The world is a scary place. That's one. Or the world is out to get me, right? So a victim stance. So all of those things that are going on in this part of us, which is our belief system, our culture, our experience that has shaped us. So belief, for example, has been shown in the modern neuroscience to be very, very important in terms of chronic pain. So if you have a belief that, if you believe your the MRI that shows that you have a bulging disc, and you take that in your mind, you say, well, this back pain is because of my bulging disc, then that can actually help to perpetuate your back pain. But if you go to a pain specialist who tells you, well, actually, there's very little correlation between what is shown in diagnostic imagery and the level of pain that people feel, and that there's lots of people walking around with diagnostics that when specialists look at it, they say, how is this person walking? And they don't have any pain. And then there's other people in extreme pain who actually don't have anything showing in the diagnostics. So that belief can contribute to pain. Or the belief that I will always have this pain. Or the belief that there's nothing that can be done with this pain. Doctors will often tell you that. There's nothing else that we can do, you'll just have to live with it. And then you take that on, and it becomes part of what your brain filters through to decide whether it's going to produce pain or not. So this is the part that's very, very important. This is the part of us that can form an intention to discover more about this whole world of pain and pain science, and what can be done what can I do to decrease my pain. So shifting belief from victim to active participant and willing participant and confident participant, because once you start to learn some things that help, then you know that you can do it. You know that you can have some control over your pain levels, or at least your relationship to pain. And here's the place where we make a commitment to have self-compassion. And I'm just going to tell a little story about myself. I've been very hard on myself my whole life. And in 2001, I got really, really sick with chronic fatigue. And then a few years later, I got really, really horrible systemic arthritis, inflammatory arthritis, and I was in excruciating pain for over 10 years. And I felt really, really sorry for myself, really sorry for myself. And if somebody had said to me at the beginning, you need to learn to love yourself, you need to learn to have self-compassion, I would have said to them, what the hell is that? I had absolutely no idea what that meant. But for me, that was the learning of now almost 20 years of chronic illness and being in pain. So somewhere along that route, I got my hope back. I didn't even realize that I'd lost it. But these are all things that take place in that higher mind part of us, where we challenge our own beliefs, we challenge our own assumptions, and we decide to shift our perspective. And that it's not easy. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. And so we'll do just a little bit of that today. And so then the last aspect that the yoga tradition recognizes is our essence self. So call it what you want, soul or spirit or consciousness or awareness, whatever you want, nature, whatever you want to call it. It's that part of us that is connected to everything else through our prana, through our aliveness, through our consciousness. And that when we can clear all of that other stuff away and get in touch with that, then we can be in touch with our joy essence, our peace essence. And we can be in that place even as we're in pain or even as we're dying. We can be in our essence place. And that is a real key in learning how to deal with chronic pain. So I think that's all I want to say about the yogic perspective of that. But I always find it so interesting when new science comes out and all of us old yogis go, well, isn't it nice to have the yoga tradition confirmed by modern science? Because really that's what it's doing. Okay, so I'd like to take now probably about 45 minutes, something like that, and do a practice. And it's going to be a chair practice. So we've been sitting for a while already. So if you could maybe just stand up and move around a little bit so that your bum doesn't go to sleep. And I'm going to cut my head off now as I stand up. So maybe just walk in place or swing your arms around a little bit. And while you're doing this, I want to say just a little bit about how we're going to do this. So because I can't see everyone, and in a class I would know all about you, it's going to be up to you to decide what's safe for you and what's comfortable for you. And when we do yoga therapy, it's not so much what you do. So I don't care if you can raise your arms up over your head. I really don't care. But I do care that there's some way of doing something toward that that you can do and that you feel comfortable with. Okay? So just give your legs a little shimmy, little shake, your bum a little shake. So if I ask you to do anything that doesn't feel okay, you don't do it. A little shimmy in the arms, little shimmy in the spine, little shimmy in the front of the body. Let the whole body shimmy a little bit. Good. Okay. So come to sitting, please. I will leave about 15 minutes at the end for questions. Okay, so the process of working with chronic pain with yoga therapy is we want to calm the nervous system. We want to do that we want to increase the breath capacity, and that's going to help calm the nervous system. We want to find that place of self-compassion. And then we want to take the breath and the self-compassion into some very simple and doable movements. So we'll start with a body scan so that you can set a base level and say hello to your body. So if you could sit in your chair, find the most comfortable position for yourself. And if it's comfortable, please close your eyes. If you'd rather not, then just turn your gaze to the floor, please. And I've been talking a lot, so if you could gather your awareness into your body now. So imagine that as you inhale, you're gathering all of your little bits of energy from out there in the world and attached to other people and bringing it into your body. And as you exhale, settling your own energy into your own body where it belongs. Do that 2 more times. And then feel your feet on the floor. And feeling, what does that feel like? What are the sensations? Feeling the hardness of the floor and the flatness of the floor, and noticing which parts of your feet are touching the floor. And then imagine that your feet can breathe. So expanding and condensing. Expanding on the inhalation, condensing on the exhalation. And then taking your awareness up to your calves, your shins, your lower legs. And noticing if there's any sensation there. You might feel your clothing on your leg or the temperature of the room. And then imagine that your lower legs can breathe. and that they're expanding with inhalation and condensing on exhalation. And that all of the cells of your leg are participating in this. The hundreds of millions of cells are also expanding and condensing. And then turning your attention to your knees. And imagine that your knees are breathing. And I should say that at any time during this, if you're feeling uncomfortable sitting and you're more comfortable lying down, then please feel free to do that. That's one thing that we can't do in the Choices seminar room. And then turning your attention now to your thighs, feeling your thighs on the back of the chair. Feeling whatever sensations are in your thighs. And then starting to imagine that your thighs are breathing. Front, back, sides. Letting your awareness now travel to your pelvis and feeling your sitting bones on the chair and your buttocks. Feeling the sides of your pelvis, the pubic bone in front, and your sacrum. Noticing any sensations of ease or discomfort. And then imagining that your whole pelvis and your belly in front is breathing. And then taking your awareness to your whole back area, your spine, your flesh, your muscles on either side. And imagine that your whole back is breathing. And then all of your torso. Imagine that every cell in your torso, front, back, sides, is breathing. And then letting your awareness now travel to your arms, your shoulders, your upper arms, your elbows, forearms, wrists, and hands. And that your whole arm, both arms, breathing. And then moving your awareness up into your neck and your head, your jaw, your brain, your eyes. And your whole body, every single cell in your body breathing, expanding and condensing, expanding and condensing. And then letting that go and keeping your eyes closed, tuning into what is the effect of that traveling through your body with breath. Is there anything different that you notice? What the yoga tradition tells us about breath is that you can use different breaths to create different effects. So with chronic pain, we want to calm the nervous system. And the best way to do that is to extend the exhalation a little bit. But before we do that, let's get our breath down in our body. So like I was saying, a lot of people in pain tend to breathe up here. But if you could take your hands and place one hand on your belly in front, and then just the back of the hand or the palm of the hand somewhere on your back, on the back of your sacrum. For me, I like to just place the back of my hand on my back. That's the most comfortable for me. And if it's not comfortable for you to move your arm like that, then just sit back against the chair so that you have something touching. And then imagine that there's a beach ball situated right in the middle of your hands, right in the middle of your pelvis. And that as you inhale, the air goes down, 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 down. You sink it down and you fill that beach ball so that it expands on all sides. And then as you exhale, then it gets deflated. So each inhalation following with your mind, the breath as it enters your nose, throat, lungs, and then of course, imaginary journey into the stomach to blow up the balloon or the beach ball. And see if you can focus on the back hand especially, getting the breath into the back of your body. And this can be particularly important if you have low back pain. Breathing into a painful area can be very helpful. So your breath is calm, it's relaxed, as relaxed as you can make it, and non-effortful. So it's not a big deal breath, it's more of an awareness. Okay, so letting that go for now. The yoga tradition also tells us that we can calm the nervous system, which will help those feelings of safety to arise when the exhalation is longer than the inhalation. So if you could just tune into your breath and with your own count your inhalation and count your exhalation. And just your normal breath, nothing performed, not trying to make it anything other than it is. So keep that in mind. And what we're going to do is add in a breath called the who breath. And It's very simple. You're going to inhale through your nose and as much as you can, taking it down to your belly to inflate that beach ball. And then as you exhale, pursing your lips as though you're going to be blowing out a candle and making a and if you want, you can actually make a sound. So what I'd like you to do is first, for the first 3 breaths, continue in your own breath pattern. So if you were inhaling for 2, exhaling for 2, then continue with that, but add in the who breath. And then for the next few breaths, extend the exhalation by 1. So keep your inhalation count the same and extend the exhalation and the who by 1 count. And if that feels okay, then extend it by 1 more. So your exhalation is extended by 3 counts. And if that feels okay, then see if you can extend your exhalation by 4 counts. Otherwise, stay with 3. And if you find yourself pushing the breath out or struggling or straining at all, then go back to the last count. And for these last few breaths, make your exhalation as long as you can comfortably. And then letting that go. Tuning in with your eyes closed and noticing, how has that changed my experience? How has that changed my breath, if at all? What is the quality of my mind after doing that? Okay, and then opening your eyes. And normally in a class situation, I would be asking for feedback. So a few people would say how they feel, but we're very short for time tonight. So I'll leave time at the end. And if you want to make some comments, then you can. So the breath is constricted by muscle tension. And if we want to expand the breath, then we want to loosen some of that tension. So we'll do some movements with a view to working with some of the container of the breath and opening that up a little bit. So just to take a base level, wherever you're sitting, just slide your right hand down toward the floor and notice how that goes for you, then bringing it up, going over to the left, bringing it up. Do that one more time on each side and just notice how that is. And that will be our baseline. Okay, so we'll start with the right shoulder, and on an inhalation, just raising that right shoulder up. And as you exhale, like the shoulder is deflating, slowly lower it down, just back to neutral. And doing that a few times, raising the shoulder up and lowering it down. In yoga therapy, we tend to, just keep doing that, we tend to focus on particular parts of the body and do some experiments and some inquiry into each part, and then see how that affects the whole. Okay, continue doing that, but as you do it, turn and look at that shoulder. Move your eyes, move your head. And last time. And then with the other shoulder. So first, just raising it up on the inhalation, and then undoing the movement on the exhalation. So in yoga therapy, we're always focusing on how you do a movement, not so much on the what, because there's, for example, so many different kinds of movements and practices that might help low back pain, but it's how you do them that is important. So adding the head in, and then letting that go. And then taking the hands and clasping them just above each shoulder, and start to move the elbows a little bit from side to side, but let your body stay in the middle. And then if it's okay, you can start to move the shoulder or the elbows up a little bit. And that will affect a different part of your back, you may notice. And maybe you can take them a little bit higher, but stay with whatever movement is comfortable for you. If coming up to shoulder height is not okay, then you just stay a little lower than that, because you don't want to send your nervous system into danger zone by doing something that hurts. So we always want to find comfortable. And if that feels okay, then you might want to take your elbows even a little bit higher. And if that's not okay, then just stay with what's okay. And if you've gone higher, then gradually start to come lower. Until you're back to where you started. And then undo your arms and take a moment to feel what's happened. Was that okay? Was it neutral? Was it not okay? Did it open something up? What are the sensations of that? Has it done anything to your breath? So in yoga therapy, we're always setting a baseline and then doing something and going back and seeing how did that change things? And if it didn't make any difference, then is there some way we can modify that? Or is there something else we can do that will bring some sort of positive change about? Okay. So come forward on your chair so that you're not sitting on the back, so that your feet can be flat and pointing as straight ahead as is comfortable for you. And we'll do a few practices now that help to open up the capacity of the ribs and the spine for more breath. So if you could place your hands on your lap, and feel your sitting bones. And as you inhale, rock forward on your sitting bones so that your spine arches a little bit. As you exhale, rock back on your sitting bones so that your spine rounds a little bit. I'll show you that from the side. Rolling forward on your sitting bones so the spine arches a little. Rolling back on your sitting bones so the spine rounds. In a nice, easy, comfortable way. And can you follow that movement as it sequences up the spine from the sitting bones, low back, middle back, upper back, neck, and head? And then as you roll back on your sitting bones, follow that rounding movement, pelvis, low back, middle back, upper back, neck, and head. And can you make your breath relaxed, low in your belly, and even? So these simple movements, let that be that, these simple movements can give new information to your brain, like, I can do this movement and it doesn't hurt. And then your brain takes that and it can remember that. So that the next time you have to bend over to get something, it remembers, wow, I bent over in a movement and it didn't hurt. Okay, so take your right hand, your right arm and dangle it. Take your left hand and put it somewhere on your ribs if you can, if that's comfortable. If not, then don't. And then slide your hand down so that you tip over again. And as you do that, feel how the ribs expand and breathe into those ribs. And then exhale and come up. So as you inhale, The ribs are widening, spreading apart, and you're breathing into that place, into your hand, and then exhale and coming back up. So in your own breath rhythm. And last time. And then taking that left arm down, dangling it, taking the right hand, placing it on the ribs, and same thing. Sliding the arm down, feeling the ribs open, and breathing into those open ribs. And only going as far as is comfortable. So maybe it's just a tiny, tiny little side bend. It doesn't matter how far you go. What matters is, can you create safety for your nervous system? Good, and let that be that. Taking a moment to feel the sensations of that. And then if you could take your hands behind you and hold on to the chair behind you, or clasp your hands behind your back if you can do that. So now, as you inhale, lift your arms, your hands away from your body and tuck your chin down and breathe into your upper chest, expanding those ribs. As you exhale, hands come down and head comes back to the starting place. So you're inhaling, arms move away from the body, chin moves down. Exhaling, arms relax, head relaxes. Do that 2 more times. And then relax your arms. Okay, take your arms back into this position again. And start to make a figure 8 with your elbows so that you move to one side. And this time, let your body, your whole upper body move with the figure 8. So keep it low if that feels good. And again, you can change the level of your arms. You can take them a little further to one side. You can take them higher. Notice which direction you're going and then change direction. And feel how your ribs are opening and closing. And then letting that movement come to a stop. Taking the arms on either side now, and let's return to the baseline position of sliding the arm down and then up and then other side, and noticing if there's any difference in how this feels, in what your experience is of this from your starting point. Good. And then letting that go. Okay, so the last part of the practice, we'll take 5 minutes here, is a self-compassion practice. And it's a meditation, and the meditation is called the loving kindness meditation. And I just want to tell you one little quick story here. I had a student who had a lot of pain because she had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And she came up to me one day and she said, you know, out of all of the classes that we've done, the one that helped my pain the most was the class that we did on forgiveness. So I say that because these qualities, like self-compassion, they're actually practices. They can have a huge impact on your pain levels. So if you could take your hands and place them on your heart, closing your eyes if that's okay, otherwise turning your gaze down. And imagine that you are surrounded by a circle of loving beings encircling you, and they're all looking at you with the deepest love and compassion. And they could be, make it real for yourself. So it could be your family, your loved ones, people who are here, people who have already died, could be mythical figures, your dog, spiritual figures, anyone. Imagine yourself surrounded by these beings and they're all looking at you with such loving kindness. So this meditation is 4 phrases, and I'll say the phrases one by one. And so we'll go through them call and response twice, and then I'll let you do it for the rest of the time. So the first phrase is, may I be filled with loving kindness. So saying that, may I be filled with loving kindness. And saying that a few times to yourself, and as you do that, can you bring up a feeling of loving kindness for yourself? Can you remember a time when you showed yourself compassion or loving kindness? Can you let yourself feel that? May I be filled with loving kindness. The second phrase is, may I be well. May I be well. Saying that a few times to yourself. And even if you're not well, saying may I be well opens up a little possibility that at some time in the future you will be well. And that your essence is always well. May I be well. So the third phrase is, may I be peaceful and at ease. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be peaceful and at ease. And bringing up that feeling for yourself, remembering a time when you felt much peace, much ease. And the fourth phrase is, may I be happy. May I be happy. It's like an invocation, a prayer. May I be happy. Okay, so we'll go through it twice. I'll say the phrase and then you can repeat it. And then I'll let you do it for a few minutes yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May I be happy. So continue on your own for the next couple of minutes. And if you forget, it doesn't matter. Leave as much space between the phrases as you need to let it really sink in, to allow yourself to have that. And if your mind drifts off, when you discover that, just gently bring yourself back to the practice. Noticing any thoughts that might come in, like, I don't believe this or whatever, and just go back to the practice. That's what meditation is. You just go back to the practice. Let this round be the last round. And when you finish, just sit quietly for a few moments. You can take your hands down and notice what that meditation has brought. Lots of research showing that meditation can help chronic pain and chronic illness. Okay, so that is that for the practice. And we have about 10 minutes left. And I would love, oh, there's some questions. Okay, I would love for you to, if you have a question, and I see there's some questions here, and if also feedback. So if you would like to unmute yourself and give some feedback or ask a question, please do. And I'll just look at some of the questions. Okay, I have a question from Ellie. Is this only related to physical pain, or does this pertain to psychological pain, including trauma? And yes, the research definitely shows that pain is pain is pain, and that psychological pain travels the same neural pathways as physical pain. So we work with psychological pain in exactly the same way. Yeah. And another question is repatterning dysfunctional patterns on a physical level or on all? It is on all levels. It is on the physical level with alignment, with movement patterns, with how you walk. It's on the breath level. What's your habit of breathing? It's on your emotional response level. It's on your cognition level. How do you perceive the world? And on your habit of how connected are you to yourself, to others, and to your essence. Yeah. Good. Questions? Where can we go for more of this? I will show you some books. I will show you some books. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Just unmute yourself because I can't see everyone.
That was very relaxing. I was almost sleeping when I was lying down. Thank you. I needed that, but yeah, definitely lessened. Well, it's interesting because I find that when I'm lying down, I find that I hold a lot of tension, whether I'm sitting or even lying down. And I actually have a hard time releasing that and relaxing. And I think it helped a little bit. I'm not sure how much because, I mean, it must have because I was like almost zoned out there for a moment.
Well, the thing with yoga is that it's a process. It takes time, and it takes dedication. You have to, I often say to my students, the damn thing about yoga is that you have to do it. And one of my students said to me in response to that, well, pain is a great motivator. Pain is a great motivator. Yeah. Anyone else? Comments, questions? Okay, so I'll give you some resources now then. So this is one of my favorite books. It's called Yoga for Pain Relief. It's by my colleague, Kelly McGonigal. I think she is a psychologist as well as a yoga therapist. And so she really brings the yogic aspect of pain, treating pain out. And the king of pain neuroscience wrote this book. It's called Explain Pain. And this is Lorimer Moseley and his pal, I can't remember his pal's name. And if you, it's called Explain Pain by Lorimer Moseley. If you give choices permission to take your email address, then Hannah will send it to me, and if you're interested, I will send you a list of some resources. There's some good resources in BC. There's some great online resources, and for those of you who are local, I will show you my. Is that? It's not showing. Let's see. I'm trying to screen share my information. So why isn't it sharing? Okay, maybe it doesn't want to share. So I will just say this then. Oh, there, share. Good. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is my studio. This is my studio, Centerpoint Yoga Therapy in White Rock, and we are a dedicated yoga therapy studio. There's two of us here, and Janine trained with me. I taught a yoga therapy training course for 14 years. I developed and taught it, and so we specialize in working with conditions that require yoga therapy. So most of the people who come here would not do well in a regular yoga class. So we do all of those things that I've been talking about. And there's a very wonderful phenomenon of healing in community. So when you're in a class situation, whether it's an online class or a regular online class or an in-studio class, you connect with people, and that connection becomes part of your healing process. So we know from the science that the more connected, that in order to heal, you have to be in the part of your nervous system that is about connection and safety. So being in community and having a shared vision and a shared purpose can really help that. So if you give your email to Hannah, then I'll send you some information. You will be on my mailing list.
Leila,
Yes.
do you know anybody in Vancouver or anybody online? My cousin goes to you and she just raves about you, and you're just a little far from me.
Yeah, well, in Vancouver, yes. If you email me, I will, there's a number of people who have studied with me and who have become yoga therapists in Vancouver.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I can give you a referral depending on where.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
This has been, I have to say that you put everything together so well. I've been to pain classes, I've been to movement classes, I've been to yoga classes, but you just put it all together so well. You've almost got me in tears just saying that.
That's what 40 years of pain.
Yeah, I tell you, I think I've got a few.
And the search, you know, it's been a personal search, and yoga has been my savior. When I was so crippled with arthritis, that I was in wheelchairs in airports because I couldn't walk. I was so grateful that I had the tools that I have, because even though it would be the same the next morning, every day I would hobble down the stairs into the studio. I have a home studio. I would do some stuff, and then I would be able to move with much less pain for the rest of the day. I mean, I was still in pain, but it was from debilitating pain that just filled every second of my consciousness to, yeah, I can do some stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
There is hope. That's what I really want to leave you with, that no matter where you are in your pain journey, there is hope. And it can be as simple as a breath. It can be as simple as a movement. It can be as simple as a meditation that changes your thought patterns. So.
Yeah, well, you've given that to me tonight.
Yeah.
I thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So.
Namaste.
Be kind, be well, be safe. Namaste.
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 And please be in touch if you'd like to.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Bye, Moira.
Thank you.
See some familiar faces. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sylvia. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll probably do more of these. Different topics. Send your topic requests into Hannah.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.